let's say library. Package will be using tidyverse. I usually use tidyverse unless we need other things, but this tidyverse will be sufficient. So this is our file. It's somewhere in the description of whatever I gave you in the coursework, so you should be able to access it easily. It's a CSV document. I recommend you peruse your document before you start, just to see what's going on with the document before you actually go through R. It's just for practicality's sake. You can just work on it in R, but just for the sake of understanding what the heck you're looking at, I'd say just peruse your document. So in general, it's a malaria. It's a document online. It has six columns and a bajillion rows. So it has different countries. Entity means country, or I have perused this document before, so keep in mind that, you know, entity means country, or it could mean region. For example, let's take something easier. A region, a random region. Yeah, sure. Central Asia is a region. Central Europe is a region. So entity could mean region. Entity could mean country. So that's something to look out. So that's something to look out for. Other than that, we're looking at the year, age group, and deaths. So I just recommend doing that just for practicality's sake. So for now, let's call our data malaria data. So say malaria data is, so if you don't know that, that's alt minus, I'll put an image somewhere. Alt minus, this means you pronounce this as is. This is read CSV, and then what I do is I just copy the name from here. It's much easier this way. So and then make sure at the end you put .csv, because if you forget that, then you're screwed. Anyway, yeah, .csv, and you press Control Enter. Control Enter gives you this. So this is all our data. So see, basically all our data is here, and yeah. But our data has a problem. We have the X column. It's basically the duplicate of this. I don't want it. It's just a list of each and every single number here. I don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to press Ctrl Shift M. That means then, and then say select -1. So that means in our malaria data set, we're going to take away the first column. So shabuya, we now don't have the first column. So, you know, it's easy and it's simple and it's useful in this case, because what do we need all those numbers for if we already have these numbers? So yeah, anyway, so inspecting data is a couple of simple commands. Number one, head malaria data, Control Enter. So the head function helps us to see just the first few columns. So we know the columns entity, code, year, age group, and deaths. Basic, you know, just the basic thingies. And then you take a glimpse of the same data set. The glimpse function helps us to check how many columns we've got. It gives us how many rows we've got. So we know that we have 30,000 rows, 30,780 rows, 5 columns. Of our 5 columns, 2 are strings, there's 1 integer as a character, 3 are character columns, there's an integer and a DPL. This is more to decimal points, and the integer column is more for solid numbers. So yeah, the string function also works pretty much similar way. Yeah, but for now you can just, we just use that. We can just use those two. So anyway, now we know how many numbers, so we know how many columns there are, we know how many rows there are. Next thing is we find out which columns have missing data. So we use the is not function within the column thing. So within core sums we use is not, and take the malaria data. So this is basically how you write a core sums function. So we're trying to find missing data, right? So what it does is it gives us each column and how much missing data there is. So now what we know is that we have 4,320 missing values in the code column. So our code column is this. So why in the world is that missing? So let's say missing code column is, so again we use this to create a new object. We use this to create a new object, right? So is, so alt minus missing code column is, we take our malaria data file, we take the missing code column, we say okay, take the malaria data file, and then filter out anything that is not blank. Okay, so what I've done is we've isolated those 4,320 files. So we've filtered out everything that is blank. So here we've created a new object. So we just press it and you see NA. So what is important about this NA thing? I looked at the data set already, so keep in mind, it's not new to me, but essentially what we have here is regions. So our initial data set has regions and countries. So what they've done is they've duplicated the data. So for example, this, we have regional data here. So we've just isolated the regional data. So this is Central Sub-Saharan Africa. In 1994, there was a number of deaths. In 1998, there was a number of deaths. So they categorize the data. So for example, if we were to just run functions randomly and combine everything, what will happen is we'll duplicate the data, and then we're just gonna screw it up. So yeah, it's important to use the core sums function, because if you find missing data, then it's just gonna work out better. Keep in mind this is a simple file, but step by step. Anyway, missing code. So I don't like calling it the missing code. So missing code column. So let's say we'll call it malaria regional data. No, let's say malaria regional is missing code column. So just renamed it. So not really renamed it, we created a new object, but for now I don't want to call it missing code column because it doesn't really make sense with what we're doing. So let's call it malaria regional. Anyway, now I say we isolate the normal country data, so that now we're dealing with these things independently. Since we have the regional data, let's also isolate the then let's also isolate the national data. So what do? We say malaria national data is you take the malaria data file, Control Shift M, and then you filter out in the same way that code is there. You filter out, you say everything that we now filter out everything that has, you know, like, since this is not give us blanks, this will give us everything that's not a blank. So malaria national data, now we have just countries. So for now, this is what's going to be useful to us, at least depending on what we want to analyze, right? So we've now isolated the two sections of the data. It will help us to, you know, make sense of everything independently, you know, to avoid duplication. Yeah, I hope that makes sense so far. Anywho, we've seen that, so we've taken our code, taken our data, we've seen that, okay, there's some missing files. We've looked up some 1, 2, 3 things, and then we've looked up a couple of things, and then isolated different sections of the data. One thing is, we were lucky that the data set itself already has good, you know, the type of data is already well labeled, is already the right type of data. For example, in the entity column, we have only characters. The year is, you know, integer, and this is the double class. So in the deaths are double class. So this is the right thing. Sometimes you end up finding that, you know, age group, instead of being character, will be like, you know, integer, or code will end up being like DBL for no reason. So you have to like make sure that those things are like set in order. But since our data here is, you know, we're already lucky, we've been lucky here. So let's continue. So Ctrl+Shift+R, let's say I'll call this data hygiene. It's just for easier sifting of the data, creating smaller subgroups to kind of make sense of things. I'll show you what I mean. Let's take the malaria national data. What we're going to do is we're going to filter it out. So let's say malaria national data. Malaria national is malaria national, then distinct, and so what we're going to do is we'll take our malaria data. We'll then, you know, keep in mind you want to put gaps in your code like this, so I don't want to continue and go like distinct, and then you want to kind of start on a new line, so that, you know, your code has to like look good for it to be more readable. So make sure you keep